Welcome everyone, it's lovely to see you here. So today I have a message on safety and familiarity. Familiarity and safety are deeply intertwined, to the point that when something feels deeply familiar enough, it can feel deeply safe, even if it's causing us a lot of harm. And this is how we can get involved in certain destructive habits, addictions, relationships, and we can't seem to understand sometimes why we're drawn to these things. Now, where does this come from? Where does this deep familiarity come from? And therefore this safety, the reason why we're doing these things. The deepest familiarity comes from where we came from, our childhood, where we were forming all of our beliefs about the world, about ourselves, how can we get the love we need, which is essential for our survival and our safety. So if we encounter certain patterns in our childhood that didn't seem to meet our deepest needs, whatever was there, whatever we interacted with and received from our caregivers and our environment, that becomes the most familiar and therefore the most safe thing. And that's our whole paradigm for meeting our needs and getting the love that we need. So we mold ourselves to that, and we form a deep feeling of safety with certain patterns that occurred there because it's all we've ever known. So if you're noticing you are drawn to certain destructive coping mechanisms, addictions, relationships, etc. in your present life, it can be really interesting to reflect back on where this came from, because often there'll be a deep feeling of safety in those things, even though a part of you will also be feeling very distressed by those things. So this can be rewired with therapy such as EFT or other therapies, through introspection, and ultimately alongside that in the right time with practical action too. And sometimes it can take time, sometimes it can be quick, but it's a very interesting journey. So just some food for thought for today. And it's also really, through this understanding, it's a really good way to build self-compassion, because sometimes we might be doing a destructive behaviour and beat ourselves up for it. Why am I doing this thing? This is hurting me. But when we can see the roots of it and where it came from, it leads to this deeper understanding and what can start to be compassion for where this came from, because there is a reason for all of it. It was our way of surviving and protecting ourselves, and we did the absolute best that we could at that time. And maybe that way of protecting ourselves is outdated now, but it can take time and work to shift our system of what is familiar and what is safe and recode that onto newer, more functional habits. So safety and familiarity, and how these things are interlinked. How can this affect our relationships? So there's a lot of talk at the moment about attachment styles, trauma bonds and things like this, which is all very relevant to this topic. So we will notice to varying degrees that in our relationships, certain patterns, and specifically our intimate romantic relationships, certain patterns from our childhood will be replaying out. If we are really stuck in those patterns from our childhood that are dysfunctional patterns, we will notice we're really attracting some quite distressing dynamics for us. And we seem to only be attracted to people who provide this dynamic. Now, why is that? Because, as mentioned in the previous video, our nervous system, our belief systems are primed to attract what feels safe, and what was in our childhood was the most familiar, safe thing, and the way we learnt to get the survival and love that we needed, even if that love did not feel like the most full functional version of love. That was the best we could get, and that was what we needed to survive. So our body, our nervous system, our belief systems will attract us towards the same dynamics we had in the childhood. Now, if they were abusive, we're going to continue to attract abusive partners. Our subconscious is trying to also maybe get the love we never felt we had in our childhood from that current partner. So therefore we replay that dynamic of what we had in our childhood in the present, still trying to get that love that we never had. And maybe that dynamic might not actually be able to give us that love, but it's that craving for it that's drawing us in. Or maybe the dynamic is relatively healthy, but there's some areas where you notice these dysfunctional patterns playing out. There's many different ways that this can manifest. Only when we can rewire that familiarity and that safety, and this can be done through therapies, then we can notice the dynamics can start to shift. We might feel our attraction changes. We might hold ourselves differently in our relationships. Our needs and wants and desires might change. And it's quite profound, the effect that this can have, whether it means ending a relationship or whether it just means the dynamics can shift more healthily in a relationship that you've already got. The effects can be profound. So it's a very powerful tool to have. Sending much love, everyone.